What's up, internet? My name's Ori. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. You like this video, hit that like button, hit that notification bell. You'll never miss a video. You'll never miss a stream. And today we are breaking down episode 2 of Survivor. Another really good episode this week. We started off with Baka back at camp after Tribal. Owen was very thankful to be there after he knows his name was kind of going around. Gable was also glad he could trust them not to use his idol. There was a big storm and they were really kind of suffering all night. They lost their fire. And remember, they lost their flint as well, so they couldn't even restart their fire well. Gable's definitely been struggling. He was really showing off that like he needed to rest a lot just because he feels so weak and exhausted, and even though he's getting stronger by doing this, he feels like he's becoming weaker and looking weaker to his tribe the more he does this at camp. So definitely something to keep eye on if Baka ends up going to Tribal anytime soon. Then we switch over to Vesi, and over on Vesi, Jesse and Dwight were actually out looking for idols and advantages and seeing what they could find. This is when Jesse pretty much proposed. Yeah, it's a proposal to Dwight to be his island wife. Since him and his wife, he says, hey, we have a really good relationship, and we always talk about everything and talk things through. So he's like, Dwight's like my island wife. There was even a full proposal later on at Tribal, so that was good. Coco, Carla was actually kind of worried about the Gio and Ryan relationship getting close, but to be honest, we didn't get a lot of Coco in this episode. It was mainly really a very Vesi and Baka heavy episode. Not much really time spent over there, but we did get that little bit of input that, hey, maybe Gio and Ryan are being looked at as a possible duo. Again, back over to Vesi, and we saw a lot of stuff with Cody just being really likable. He just seems like a very down-to-earth kind of guy. He was sharing a lot of stories about a friend that he had that also lost his leg and then eventually passed away as well. So he was trying to build a little bit of a connection there with Noel, but also just the other survivors kind of telling his story. And then after that, we switched back over to Baka with Owen carrying water and just complaining. He was like, it looks like I pissed my pants. He's like, they're probably out looking for idols, which flash to Ellie actually searching for idols around along with Janine, and Ellie literally misses an advantage that's like right in front of her face, but she doesn't see it. It was right there for her, but she didn't grab it. And then Ellie and Janine, they kind of bring up how they want to bring Sammy or Owen in, and Ellie even describes them. She's like, they're like my kids, right? So Sammy, he's the firstborn. He's, self-sufficient. He can take care of himself. You don't need to worry about him too much. Owen, he's the younger son. He's the one you need to make sure is okay. He needs a little bit more attention. Which is kind of a role reversal, seeing as Sammy is the youngest survivor out there right now, but still kind of funny nonetheless. And they both kind of describe the rest of the guys on the Baka tribe as, the bros are broing out, right? Like, I don't think they're actually really talking game at all. But in actuality, when we flash over to them being alone, the guys are like, hey, we should all just look out for each other, right? Like, let's keep each other, together. The girls are kind of underestimating us as far as game talk, but like, look, if we got each other's back, we're solid. So we'll see if that holds firm once they have to go to Tribal again. Then it's time to get into the challenge. It was immunity challenge time. There was also a reward involved with this as well. The first team that finished gets a very large fishing gear set. The second team gets a much smaller set, but still something they can use to fish. And the third team, they get a trip to Tribal Council, and they lose their flint. It was kind of the classic Survivor challenge where they had to swim on out, climb over a bamboo cage, and get a heavy object out. This year, it was a very large snake. They then had to drag that onto the beach, untie it, find their numbers so they could do a combo, which would release a piece for the puzzle that they would then have to do after that. with this, Noelle was sitting out for Vesi. Carla was sitting out for Coco since they both had an extra person. And Baka gets out with a lead really quickly. They get their snake out first. Coco's after them. Vesi, I honestly thought at one point that Cody was going to eat it. He was hanging on to that snake for dear life, trying to pull it over the cage. But they were the slowest ones to get it out there. And then they really showed that Nika was seemingly the weakest link on the tribe, really kind of holding them back, wasn't really able to carry the snake as much as the others, and it really kind of helped them fall far behind. Baka just continues to kind of roll through this. They get their combo pretty quickly, and they're right into the puzzle. Coco's not too far behind, but they do have some time to make up for in the challenge. And then finally, when Vesi gets to the puzzle portion, that piece that they had to unlock, they just kind of discard that final piece. And when that first happened, I was like, oh man, is this really going to come back to bite them? But eventually Baka wins, just they run away with it. They really didn't have any point where they were slacking in this competition. Coco not too far behind, and that piece we talked about, it really didn't matter. They did try and play it up like, oh yeah, if we had that piece, it would have went. It's like, no, you didn't even have half your puzzles finished. You weren't even close. Even with that piece, I just don't think it would have really mattered. And it seemed like the obvious easy target was going to be NECA. But maybe it was too obvious, because eventually we get back to camp, and Cody's like, I don't want her to go. We kind of already established too that there's several little duos going on. You got Justine and Noelle, Cody and NECA, Jesse and Dwight seem to be kind of the pairings on the Vesi tribe. So it's kind of 3 duos going on. So we'll kind of see how that all heads out. Before we head to tribal, there was a little bit of interesting things that happened over on Baka. So they had won, they got the spear, they were kind of celebrating. Gabler was out trying to practice with the spear. We'll see how he does with the Hawaiian swing. It doesn't look like he had it completely under control. But the other people, especially Ellie and Janine, they were like, when does his idol end? They wanted to make sure, because they weren't sure on the actual wording of it. Was it his next 2 tribal councils? Was it just the next 2 tribal councils? So they wanted to kind of make sure, like, hey, what's going on? So Janine ends up going through his bag and looking for it, which she eventually does find the little shell necklace, and she opens it up, and it does read, the exact words were, your next 2 tribals. So even though they didn't go to tribal this week, Gabler still has an idol good for 1 more tribal council that they would go to. So that kind of changes plans up over on Baka if they have to go to tribal. Gabler's probably safe unless he doesn't use that idol, which I don't see why he wouldn't use it in his last shot. Then we head back over to Vesi, because again, they lost the immunity challenge. They're going to be headed to tribal. And Jesse was thinking Justine. He was like, look, I just don't trust her. She told me that she was a really good liar, and she scares me. She seems like she's going to be a threat, especially if we let her get far in the game. She could, turn a lot of people, convince them a lot of stuff. Who knows, right? Like, she's somebody that we have to get out. And then we find out about the pineapple zone. So Jesse apparently has this thing with his wife where they go like, hey, we're in the pineapple zone, and this is where we're honest. So he's bringing Dwight into the pineapple zone, even though Dwight doesn't have a vote. Dwight, if you remember, he went on the boat ride with Gabler and Carla. Gabler ended up with the idol. Carla did not risk her vote, so she wasn't bothered by any of it. Dwight did risk his vote, so he doesn't have a vote for this tribal council. Now, they're trying to figure out, like, what they want to do. Dwight doesn't seem like he's on board. Justine ends up showing up, and she kind of digs her grave even further. Again, she had already said she was a good liar, but then she's asking Jesse, like, hey, can we trust you? You're the swing vote in this. And that made Jesse feel even more uneasy. But then things get a little complicated, because it seemed like, all right, well, if Jesse decides to go with Cody and NECA, that's 3 votes right there. Justine and Noelle, they only have 2 votes. In the worst case scenario, one of them has an idol, and then you're kind of just, there's nothing you could do there, right? If they use the idol and they guessed right on the person you were voting, it doesn't matter. Even if you split the votes, right? Like it's 2 versus 3. If you split the votes and it's 2-1 and they use the idol correctly, well, then it's still just 2-1, and it just doesn't work. You're still going to get voted out. So it was also something I was confused about why they even thought this was a good strategy later on, and it does turn out to kind of bite them there. So again, Cody goes on this little walk. He's like, yeah, before tribal, let me go walk around and see what I can find. He does find some bird doo-doo that he thought was kind of a marker for something, but no, just a bird dropping a little deuce on a tree. But he eventually does find a beware advantage. Now, listen, in Survivor, you're probably best off just taking every advantage you can. This one seemed like it was one that definitely could have really thrown a wrench in his entire game. So the way this one works, in the past few seasons, it's been like a phrase you would have to say or something like that. This one, each of the castaways have beads on their bag, and there was like one specific bead he had to get from each one of his fellow tribe mates, and once all of those beads were together, then he would have an immunity idol. Before he does that, he doesn't have a vote. So going into this tribal, it seemed like there were only going to be 4 votes that were going to be cast, because Cody didn't have a vote and Dwight didn't have a vote. But they had this genius idea on how to possibly get the beads. So Cody filled in Nneka and Jesse, and they kind of help him out on this. He had this hat, this like palm tree leaf hat that he was making, that he kind of weaved together. And he's like, yeah, I kind of want to wear the hat tonight for tribal and decorate it up. Hey, Nneka, can I have your beads to put on there? Yeah, sure, Cody, here you go. Jesse goes, yeah, here, take mine too. Justine even jumps on in. She's like, yeah, sure, here you go. Dwight, who they seem like maybe was going to be the hardest one, they get to give the beads as well and puts them on his hat. Noelle seems like the sole holdout, where she's like, I like mine. It's pretty. I'm wearing it as a bracelet. I don't want to give it. So it's like, oh no. Cody won't have his vote going in still. It's going to end up being maybe a 2-2 tie, unless Jesse does decide to go with Justine and Noelle just to keep it safe and avoid going to rocks or anything like that. How is this going to work out? This is going to be really interesting. Let's see how this goes. So we get to tribal, and not really much is held back at tribal. Everyone's pretty open about the idea that there's these 3 duos all in the game and who's going to be the tightest. Everyone's a little bit nervous that it could be their time to go. And then it's time to get to the vote. Once we get to the vote, that's when we learn that Cody actually got the beads off of Noelle. A nice little editing trick from the production team here to make it seem like Cody didn't have his vote, but he actually did, just before tribal, get that final set of beads from Noelle. So he did get his vote back. He now has an idol as well. And it ended up being Justine voted out. Dwight was upset. He was upset by not being included in this. It seems like he didn't know that it was going to be Justine. And even Justine was fairly convinced that Jesse was going to be with her as well, since she actually voted for Cody. It seemed like they were trying to go with that split vote thing. But again, it doesn't really make any sense to me. All right, so you have Justine and Noelle. Let's say they vote for Nneka, right? And then you would have Jesse, who would have voted for Cody. Let's say everything went along, right? And they got the 3 votes and they split them. That would be 2-1, right? So then you have Cody and Nneka. They're 2 votes. So let's say they played the idol right, if they had one, and they played it right for Nneka. All right, well, now those 2 votes get wiped away, and you're left with 1 vote against 2. It just doesn't make any sense to me why you would split your votes here, because it seemed like a crazy idea with this few and not enough numbers to really make it matter. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe that seems like a brilliant idea to some of you, but for me, I was kind of struggling. Why would you split the vote here? It doesn't matter. If they have an idol, they have an idol. There's not anything you could do. Especially if it would have came down to Cody not having his vote, the idea that Jesse had gotten Justine to vote for Cody would have been great too, because then that would have had it been, instead of a tie, it would have been a 2-1-1 vote. So that is a really smart move from Jesse to get the girls to go, yeah, we should split our vote, just in case there was any more, weirdness that would happen. NECA wouldn't have gone home because she would have had only one vote against her. Cody would have only had one vote against her, and then Justine would have had two from Jesse and from NECA. So it would have been simple that way too. So yeah, it was a really interesting episode. Nice little extended episode. It wasn't just an hour. We had like a full half hour extra on there. And it felt like it was needed, right? There was a lot in there to kind of go through, a lot of dynamics in the tribes that are still working out. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see how this all plays out now. Dwight and Jesse, did that kind of hurt the relationship that he didn't fill him in enough? Or will they be able to kind of rekindle and, get back into that pineapple zone? We're going to have to find out. But that pretty much wraps everything up. I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, hit that like button, hit that notification bell. You'll never miss a video. You never miss a stream. We will be back with a amazing race recap as well later on today or tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. And then I do also have my Big Brother 24 retrospective, looking over each week of the season, kind of going over different things that happened in the house on the live feeds, just kind of going over things I liked, things I didn't, trying to see, like, hey, did Taylor do enough to win, right? Is it justified, or are people looking back with rose-colored glasses thinking she had a better game, or are people looking back negatively, not realizing everything she did? So we're going to kind of break all that down, so make sure you're subscribed and you're here for that as well. Keep an eye out for that, maybe this weekend. Hopefully this weekend I can get it finished. We'll see. It's kind of a long project to go week by week. I'm watching every episode, my videos, going over my notes from each week, so it's kind of a long endeavor to get it full and finished. So keep an eye out for that. Thank you guys so much again for watching, and I will see you next time.